To let you know, this episode deals with themes surrounding child abuse and self-harm. Welcome to Filmability. My name is Joel Fisher. I am the author of Filmability, a history experience in cinema, which you can find on Amazon and Kindle paperback. Welcome back if you've joined me before, and welcome if this is your first time listening. Remember, you can find me wherever you get your podcasts, so remember to like, share, subscribe, comment, follow, all that good stuff. This week I'll be talking about Split, the 2016 horror film starring James McAvoy about a man with DID, or Dissociative Identity Disorder, who kidnaps 3 girls and makes them wait for something horrible. As usual, if you would like to watch the film, then I suggest you do so now because I'll be spoiling all of it. If you'd like to watch it, you can do so by finding it on Amazon Prime in the UK, and you can rent or buy it digitally, or you can find it in physical form. So without further ado, let's get on with the film. Okay, so the film opens with a woman in a restaurant. She's staring slightly off screen, and this is Casey, and she's played by Anya Taylor-Joy. A man arrives at the restaurant with a couple of young women with him, and he's the father of Claire, and he's played by Neil Huff. His daughter Claire is played by Hayley Lou Richardson, and her friend is called Marcia, and she's played by Jessica Sula. Claire starts talking about Casey and saying that she's odd and that they should leave her there, but her dad says that they're not leaving until they know that she's okay. Casey then approaches them, and Claire's dad insists that she comes with them. In a car park, Claire's dad is approached by somebody while the rest of them are in the car. Somebody gets into the driving seat, and assuming that it's Claire's dad, Casey puts on a seatbelt. But she quickly sees the spilled food in the wing mirror, which is behind the car. She turns around and she sees a man who she'll be calling Dennis for the moment, and he's played by James McAvoy. He puts on a medical mask, turns around and sprays Claire and Marcia in the face, knocking them unconscious. He then turns to Casey and does the same. Casey is being carried on a gurney through a corridor, and she goes in and out of consciousness while Dennis is pulling her along. She slowly wakes up, and she's on a mattress in a room with stone walls and a large steel locked door. Claire and Marcia are sitting together, and they're scared, and Casey slowly realises where she is and what's happened. Dennis then comes in and he sits down in a wooden chair staring at them, and he points to Marcia saying that he wanted to take her first, and he pulls her out of the room as she struggles, and Claire rushes to the door and starts banging on it. Soon though, Dennis throws Marcia back into the room, and she says that she was told to dance for him. Casey then has a flashback to a restaurant where 2 men are talking, and a big man is talking about a trophy hunt, and the second man thinks that he's exaggerating. This is Casey's dad, played by Sebastian Arcellus, and her uncle John, played by Brad William Henke. It cuts back to the present, and Casey is looking distraught, recalling a traumatic moment in her life. In a house, a woman climbs the stairs, while a news report plays on TV about the abduction. She goes to the computer to start an email, and this is Dr. Karen Fletcher, and she's played by Betty Buckley. Back in the room, the women are planning on what they're going to do to escape. Casey says that she thinks it won't be so easy, and Claire and Marcia say all they need to do is work together to get out, but Casey tells them to shut up, and the others get frustrated because they don't understand why she isn't like them. In a flashback, Casey is with her dad as he's teaching her how to shoot, telling her about how animals learn to survive. and Uncle John comes along and he gives her dad a beer. Back in the room, Casey then tells them that they don't even know what they're up against yet. Back at the therapist's, Dennis comes in to see Dr. Fletcher, but he's dressed differently and he's acting differently, so maybe this isn't Dennis after all. Dr. Fletcher says he's been the most consistent at his job with somebody with his condition, and he says that he's worried how long she will live because she's old. She says she's made arrangements for a colleague to take over in the event of her death. He says he thinks that she must be lonely, and reassures her that he says that he's doing much better, and that he shouldn't have emailed her. He asks her if anybody knows about us, and he's been using pronouns like us and we, and so it sort of imply that there's a shared consciousness in there, or other personalities, which will be explained a bit later. The doctor then says that she's doing a lecture about him over Skype soon. Remember Skype? She then keeps asking about whether anything's happened, but he's being sketchy about it. She's a bit worried because apparently this isn't a regular thing. He emails her when he needs her, but I suppose he hasn't for a long time. Another woman comes in to see Dr. Fletcher, and while they're watching TV, she says she doesn't know how she can talk to people like that. And they're watching a game show, so it seems that Dr. Fletcher isn't so lonely after all. And the woman says that she needs to buy a product that she sees on TV, and the scene ends. In the room, the women are looking through a crack in the door, and they see somebody wearing a skirt and heels. They call out for help, but it seems that Dennis has come in, but he's wearing the heels and the skirt. Although it's not Dennis this time. This personality is called Patricia. Patricia tells them not to worry and that she'll talk to Dennis, and she says that she's told him not to touch him. She then closes the door. In the office, Dr. Fletcher leaves and goes outside, talking to a colleague about Dennis and saying that he doesn't believe that this man is any more special than anybody else. And she argues that she thinks that they could be special and able to change their brain chemistry with their thoughts. And I mean, at this point, I think perhaps this doctor should have been struck off. This is a point where this doctor is probably spending a lot of time by herself and letting her patients get to her, and with Dennis and the other personalities, maybe it's something that she's trying to compound in her mind. But we'll see. In the room, the women are whispering, and Dennis comes in, dressed as he was in the first place, and he's carrying a bucket. He tells them to keep the place clean, showing them the cleaning products that he's brought in. He says that Patricia has told him not to bother them, and that ask a sacred food. Casey then wakes up to see who she thinks is Dennis sitting in the doorway. But again, he's dressed differently, and he introduces himself as Hedwig. He says that somebody is coming for them, and they're not going to like it, saying he's done awful things to people, and he'll do awful things to them. She says about the other personalities, and asks him to help, but he says he can't stay for long, and says he will get punished if they find out that he was there. He says he needs to leave, but Casey wants him to stay, saying that she wants to whisper something to him. She says that the other personalities don't like him, and they want to get rid of him. She says that he could show them the way out, but he says he can't, and he leaves, closing the door and locking it. Casey then says that they think they can break out through the wall if they find a weak spot. So they start knocking up the wall to try and find a weakness. And Claire notices a weak spot in the ceiling and starts digging with her high-heeled shoes. She tells the others to keep watch, but they notice Hedwig is watching. They block the door as Claire makes the hole bigger and reveals the grate in the ceiling. Taking it down, she jumps up to climb through the hole, and somebody comes through the door, but this time it's Dennis. And I mean, there's a thing about this where we've seen Dennis, we've seen Patricia, we've seen Hedwig, and each time he is dressed in different clothing according to the personality. So how does he know to change into the clothes for the personality, and where are these clothes coming from that they're so easily available for him to wear for any particular time when he is that personality? It seems very much for the audience, and it is also something that is not real for somebody who has clearly got Dissociative Identity Disorder. Anyway, Claire then makes her way through the ducts and through a boiler room. She's running as she's being pursued by Dennis. She hides in a locker, but he eventually finds her and asks her to step out. She comes out and he tells her off for trying to trick Hedwig. He tells her to take off her jumper, so she does, and she gives it to him. He tells her that he is trying to be good. It's a creepy performance. You just sort of wonder what's going to happen at this point. But, you know, the taking off the clothes is a bit of an added ick, I suppose. It's the best way to put it. Anyway, in the locks in the room, he goes back to the main room and drills screws in the ceiling to close the grate. He then tells them to remove clothes as well, and then he leaves the room. Again, I mean, this is a horror film. He's not a decent person, but this is still a level of why? Why are you doing this? At the lecture, Dr. Fletcher is talking over Skype, and she says that she thinks that more than one personality can work at the same time. She says that the personalities have different IQs and different strengths even. She says that she believes that it has unlocked the potential of the brain, suggesting this is what we think of as the supernatural. Again, at a lecture, somebody would have gone, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Do you need some therapy yourself? It just, I don't trust this therapist, unfortunately, and for the audience, they are either on board with what she's saying or they think that she's not in her right mind. Anyway, at Dr. Fletcher's office, a personality turns up called Barry. Again, this is James McAvoy, but he's playing a character called Barry, and he's talking to her, and she says that he's been emailing her all week and not turning up for appointments. But he says that didn't happen, and she keeps asking who she's talking to because she doesn't quite believe that it's Barry. She says she's going to guess, and she says that she's got to know the 23 personalities that are inside him. But she says that she thinks it's Dennis, and Patricia have taken over as well. She apologises, though, when Dennis gets frustrated, or Barry gets frustrated, because she says that she's been trained to challenge him, but he assures her that he is who he says he is, and leaves. In another room, Dr. Fletcher is talking to a man and going through some security camera footage. They see Dennis, Barry leave, and he puts on a hat and walks through some spilled rubbish on the floor. She says that she thinks that it was Dennis pretending because Dennis has OCD and he wouldn't ever do that, but he wants her to think that he's Barry, so he's doing something that Barry would do that he wouldn't do. And this is the director's cameo. This is M. Night Shyamalan playing the guys helping him out with security footage. Back in the room, Marsha tells Casey that she thinks that they should find a window. And in a flashback, Casey, her dad and her uncle are looking at a dead deer. Casey then wakes up to find Patricia standing over her with a tray of food. And then we cut to Casey sitting on the bed while Patricia is combing her hair. And as they're talking, Patricia pulls on the comb too harshly and hurts Casey. So it's very much implied that this is a person on the edge. And then Patricia puts a flower in each of the hair of the women, and she leaves the room. Then they go to a kitchen where Patricia makes them both a sandwich, and she turns on the radio. And as they're talking, thinking about escape maybe, Patricia slams down her knife as she's baking the sandwich because she's not cut it evenly. Marsha then sees her opportunity and picks up a chair, silently moving towards Patricia, and she hits her with it. She tries to escape, but Patricia is unfazed by the chair and goes after Marsha. She tries to find a way out, but the doors are locked, and as she gets to Marsha, Patricia holds a knife to her stomach. Dennis then comes back into the kitchen and warns Casey that the beast is coming for them. Again, quick change of clothes for the character. I don't know. But then he tells her that she needs to remove her shirt because it has a crumb on it. Again, I don't know why. It's not really explained, but I don't know. Maybe they're thinking young women taking their clothes off might be interesting for the audience. I don't know. It's creepy. It's weird. And then in a flashback, Casey's looking at her uncle while he's holding a gun and he's smiling back at her. So we're getting an idea of an increasingly creepy situation that is from her childhood. Back in the room, Casey's in bed and Hedwig is snuggled in behind her. He tells her that he can be the dominant personality anytime he likes, and she asks him if she can see the beast. And he says no, asking her if he can have a kiss. And she says yes, and he leans in, barely moving, and she gives him a kiss. And he pulls back, telling her that she might be pregnant now. It's very much implied that Hedwig is a child. He's maybe an early teenager in the personality, maybe younger, I don't know. He talks about music, saying that Kanye West is his favourite. That aged well. And she says that she could go with him and listen to music. She also tells him that she gets into trouble at school on purpose so that she can get away from other people. He says that he has to go because of the ritual, and he leaves. So she saw this character trying to get him on her side because she thinks that because he's a young character that he'll be manipulated easily. In the room though, Casey is laying on the floor and Hedwig comes in and he takes her out to show her his room. He starts playing loud music and dancing and trying to impress her, although the performance of the dancing and Casey being alone in the room with him, it's just very creepy, and it's mostly shot from her point of view, and it's a good performance. I will say that about James McAvoy, but there's a lot of moments where you are increasingly meant to believe that this person is not stable. Casey says that she was confused though because Hedwig says that his room had a window, and it does have a window, and he shows her, but it's a painting of a window on the wall. She realises that this was her only chance to get out, and Hedwig didn't lie to her, but in his own twisted mind, he thinks that that was what she was talking about. She pleads with him to let her out, and Hedwig says that he's been given a lot of responsibility and is looking forward to seeing the beast, so it doesn't seem like she's going anywhere anytime soon. But then he hands her a walkie-talkie, and she doesn't believe that it's real at first, because the window wasn't real, so why would that be? But then she turns it on and it is real, and she starts talking to somebody, pleading, starts saying where she is and that she needs help, but Hedwig comes at her with a baseball bat, and the man on the other side doesn't believe her though, and then Hedwig changes and it's Dennis that's there instead, and she's still pleading on the walkie-talkie, but she's not going to get any help because the man on the other side thinks it's a hoax. Dennis then leads her back to another room, telling her to hold her hands together in a prayer. He's holding a candle and he blows it out when they get there, saying that somebody will explain what's going on, and he leaves. He says that the beast is a great evolution and that it's almost over, saying that the night will be sacred. There's a lot of weird, creepy things going on with this character, although in this case I I think it might be Dennis, it might not be, I don't know. In a flashback, Casey's uncle is coaxing her over to come near him. She goes over to him and he's naked and he's on all fours, he's howling like a wolf, and she unzips her top. She sort of thinks that he's playing a game, but then he comes out of the woods afterwards to find Casey, and she has a shotgun and she's aiming it at him. He takes it off her though, saying that he knows that she's angry. So this is very much implied child abuse, and this may be why Casey is the way that she is. And Dr. Fletcher, she goes to her computer and finds multiple emails from Barry, and they all say that they need her. Back in his room, Dennis is waiting as Dr. Fletcher arrives. He asks if he thinks that they're extraordinary, and she says she knows he wants to tell her something. She goes inside with him, and he says that he wants to talk about Kevin and what happened to him. So it seems that Kevin is the personality behind everything, and that he is the one that's got the ID. She's pleased to hear that he wants to talk about it, and says that she wants to do everything she can to help him. But he says he lied about not meeting the beast, telling her that about a woman who was blind for years, only to find that she had the ID, and that she believed that her eyesight came back because of her regenerative abilities. He says the beast is real, and she asks to describe him. He tells her that he's tall and muscular and hairy, and she says that there's another part of the story that she didn't quite understand about eating the impure young, and she tells her she doesn't know what that means. He says the beast is coming, and she says she'd love to make notes about that tomorrow, and it sort of implies that she might be a bit nervous now and wanting to leave. She asks to use the bathroom though before she goes, and she goes down a long corridor, and she opens one of the doors and finds Claire lying on the floor. But Dennis catches up with her and stops her. She starts to get upset, saying that she could have stopped him before, and he knocks her out with the gas as he did before and carries her into a room. And Marsha and Claire are talking to each other, saying that they need to get out of there. So when we go to Dennis, he's in public. He takes his glasses off briefly and we see that he's on a train platform. Back at his place, Casey goes to Hedwig's room and turns on the computer. Marsha's made a hook on the string meanwhile and is trying to open her door. Casey finds video files on Hedwig's desktop though, and it's got videos of all of the personalities talking about themselves. At the platform, Dennis lays some flowers on the floor. He gets on the train and takes off his top. It seems like his body is growing more muscular as he's transforming. He climbs on top of the train as Marsha finally gets the hook around the handle. Then we see the beast running through the streets as the women are trying to escape, and the hook comes close and hits the door handle, but then it comes loose again. And Dr. Fletcher's had right in the room as the beast comes in and startles her. She finds a knife and she faces him, and his body is pulsing, covered in veins. It's a good effect. It looks like the metamorphosis might have happened that the doctor was explaining before. He puts his arms around her, holding her, facing away from him, and she stabs at him with a knife, but he squeezes her body tightly until she's dead and she drops to the floor. In Hedwig's room, Casey is still looking through the files, but then stops, going outside and through the corridor. She hears noises and gets anxious, finding Marsha on the floor in the room, who then quickly gets pulled away by the beast. Casey then finds some keys and tries to open the other doors, but she finds the note that Dr. Fletcher wrote, which just says, "Say Kevin Wendell Crumb," referring to Kevin's full name, which his mother would call him, and not to belittle abuse, but if you've ever been full named by your parents, then you know that you're in trouble. She turns around to see the beast climbing the wall behind her, So if you thought the muscular changes in the character were weird, the animalistic climbing walls kind of thing is the next level. But she finds the note that Dr. Fletcher wrote, which just says, say Kevin Wendell Crumb, referring to Kevin's full name, which his mother would call him, and not to belittle abuse, but if you've ever been full named by your parents, then you know that you're in trouble. In a flashback, we see Kevin now, from his point of view. He's under the bed and his mother's shouting at him. So this is implied that this is how it all started, and his mother's abuse is what made him how he is now. And in fact, this is one of the things that the film gets right, because the most common cause of DID is in fact child abuse. The Beast then comes into the room though, and it seems that he may be another personality now. He asks what he did and if he's hurt anyone. He tells Casey that he keeps a shotgun somewhere, and she asks her to kill him. He then changes to another personality and pleads with her not to do that. He then changes to another one, saying that he's a victim and they need to calm down. He changes through a few others and comes back to Hedwig. Casey finds a shotgun and points it at him. As Hedwig disappears though, and Patricia comes forward. He starts to turn into the Beast next, and she manages to get to the door, and she opens it and runs out. She finds a locker, but instead of hiding inside it, she pulls out everything that's inside, finding some bullets. Going back in the corridor, the Beast catches her and drags her down. She aims a shotgun at him, and he moves away though. She then pleads for help as she thinks back to how she was when she was a child at her dad's funeral, and her uncle kneels down next to her saying that he's sorry about what happened and that he'll look after her, asking her if she'll be giving him any trouble. So it's again implied this wasn't a one-off incident. She may have been abused by her uncle her entire life. In the corridor, she breaks through a gate, aiming her gun at the Beast as he gets closer, and she blindly shoots into the darkness. He says those who have been hurt have no place in the world, and that they're asleep. He says that the gun won't hurt him because he's not human, but she takes a shot anyway, and hits him in the chest. He gets up though, and gets closer to the bars that are between them, the only thing that's keeping Casey safe, and she starts to bend them. But as he gets closer, he sees the scars on her body, and it seems like she's been self-harming, and he laughs, saying that she's different to all the others. And he says that the broken are the more evolved, and he leaves. And this is my biggest problem with the film, I think, and something which probably reflects M. Night Shyamalan as a writer. The phrase, the broken are the more evolved, it romanticizes Kevin and Casey's abuse. Having to go through something traumatic in order to come out of it the other side as a better person is basically saying that abuse is a part of life and that it strengthens character. It's a form of toxic positivity that implies that abuse survivors should be grateful for their experiences while dismissing the actual pain and long-term damage that trauma causes. It others people where it implies that people who have experienced trauma are more evolved, and those who have not experienced trauma are lesser beings. It also evokes the idea brought about by eugenics, where a person's genes make them superior to others. In reality, recovering from trauma is debilitating and can leave people feeling broken, and doesn't leave people feeling like they've evolved into something else. By saying this in the film, in my opinion, M. Night Shyamalan is just dismissing Casey's trauma. Later on, a man finds Casey and he helps her out. They go outside and she's clearly traumatised, and it turns out that they were in the maintenance area of a zoo, underground, and the man called a colleague to get help. Someone's shining a torch around the maintenance area and finds all of Kevin's things, while Casey's getting treatment in the back of an ambulance. She's then sitting in a police car as an officer opens the door and says that her uncle's there to collect her, asking him if she's ready to go. It's ambiguous as to what happens to Casey, but I would like to think that she tells the police what's happened and she's safe, but we don't know. Kevin is then shown talking to himself, and this is the flashy bit, because he's going between personalities and there are mirrors and things, so it's showing every time he's talking to another personality and they're responding, and it's just an acting thing to show off how good James McAvoy is in this. And he says that the beast will protect them and they should show the world how powerful they can be. And finally, in a diner, a news reporter is talking about the abduction, and one of the women in the diner talks about another crazy man in a wheelchair that the police put away years ago, and she doesn't even remember his name. But a man says that it was Mr. Glass, and the camera reveals that this man is David, and played by Bruce Willis. So to cap it off, let's talk about the final scene. And although it may seem tagged on at the end, this is what M. Night Shyamalan intended to happen. Setting it in seemingly an entirely different location may make the audience wonder why this is the final scene at all. News report about Kevin's activities, referring to him as the Horde, suggesting he's been given some kind of supervillain name. Then a woman speaks up, saying that for some reason it reminds her of a man who was a wheelchair user who committed mass murder. And honestly, I can't really see how this character came to that conclusion, unless M. Night Shyamalan wanted the audience to make the same connection. It's clumsy, forced, and again it shows M. Night Shyamalan for the writer that he is. He's basically saying that because of the real world setting, that the villains in these movies could be easily identified because of their disabilities. Although because a larger disability is physical, and Kevin's stems from mental health issues, it creates a world where all disabled people should be considered villains, and therefore cannot be trusted. It's bad enough to do it once, but to do it twice and double down on the idea is just telling the audience what M. Night Shyamalan may really feel about disabled people. Okay, so that's the film, and up next I'll be talking a bit more about my more condensed feelings about the film overall and what I think it may mean for a non-disabled audience. So this is a horror film that's unique to M. Night Shyamalan's vision. Love him or hate him, you have to admit that nobody makes films like him. However, this area that he seems to have got himself into hasn't done him any favours. Over the years he's garnered a reputation not only for the twist, but for the hit and miss nature of his films. Not to mention the fixation on using disabled characters, who always seem to be using the worst cliches in order to represent them. However, Split seems to be taking it to a whole new level, where not only is there yet another tired cliche of a person with DID being portrayed as a serial killer, but he goes further by not only implying that they are some kind of mutant that can transform, but also links that to Unbreakable, a film which had come out 16 years previously and expected the audience to remember. Don't get me wrong, there are M. Night Shyamalan fans who will defend even his most badly misjudged films. The problem is that linking Split to Unbreakable only shows the disabled people as villains, and that is their only connection. Unless you knew about it before going in, the link to Unbreakable seems like a lazy last-minute decision to create a universe which supposedly overlooks the superhero genre that M. Night Shyamalan was attempting to deconstruct. If I were to be generous, there may be elements in Split that are a different look at a character like the Incredible Hulk, but yet again grounding this so firmly in reality only shows the audience that M. Night Shyamalan may have an underlying issue on what he thinks about disabled people. And up next I'm going to be talking a bit more about DID and what it means to the people who live with it. DID, or Dissociative Identity Disorder, had previously been known as multiple personality syndrome, and it's characterised by the presence of at least two personality states. Symptoms of DID include gaps in memory which are more severe than just ordinary forgetfulness, and are usually accompanied by other psychological disorders such as depression or anxiety. However, some research has found that although there was some amnesia between the different personalities, objective tests have found that the memory can often be intact. It starts around 5 to 6 years old, being the result of childhood trauma, but other types of trauma coming through circumstances and environment have also been found to be the cause. Although childhood trauma is still the most common cause of the condition. People with DID can be treated with psychotherapy and supportive care, as well as taking medication which is also used for other conditions that may go alongside DID. It has been found that in a couple of studies that between 1.1 to 1.5% of the general population have symptoms of DID, and 3.9% of those who are admitted to psychiatric hospitals have symptoms. Although these figures have been distributed as either overestimating or underestimating just how many people have DID, it's also diagnosed 6 to 9 more times more often in women than in men. Symptoms according to different regions of the world may vary depending on the culture. For example, in some cultures it has been shown as the person believing that they may have been possessed by spirits, deities, ghosts or mythical creatures. The same could be said for European and American countries where what they see in the media affects their behaviour. DID can present itself at any age, and other symptoms such as a loss of identity related to individual distinct personality states, loss of subjective experience of the passage of time, and a degradation of a sense of self and consciousness. The levels can vary from severe impairment to minimal, although individuals may experience stress from both the symptoms of the DID, such as hearing voices, intrusive thoughts and emotions and impulses, and of course memory loss. Also, what is known by one identity may not be known by another. The stigma of DID may also make a person with it reluctant to talk about it, because it would bring up past trauma and also the cliches of films such as Split, which makes people think that at least one of identities may be evil. And they're not. I can promise you that is not a real thing. Around half of the people with DID have fewer than 10 identities, and most have fewer than 100, although a person with as many as 4,500 identities has been found. The average number of identities has increased over time, from 2 to 3 to an average of approximately 16. So if you thought that 24 personalities seemed excessive, then it's possible, but it's not that common. Presentations of dissociation in people with schizophrenia differ from those with DID as not being rooted in trauma, and this distinction can be effectively tested. The conditions share a high rate of auditory hallucinations in the form of voices. Disturbed and altered sleep has also been suggested as having a role in dissociative disorders in general and specifically in DID. And I can think of a film called Me, Myself and Irene, which is supposedly about schizophrenia, but the main character actually has DID, and I will talk about that film in another episode. Okay, and up next, I'll be talking about the trivia. Okay, so the first thing I can tell you is that Joaquin Phoenix was the first choice to play the lead in Split, but he couldn't reach an agreement with the production, so James McAvoy was cast instead. M. Night Shyamalan met James McAvoy at a Comic-Con just by chance, and he'd recently completed X-Men Apocalypse, and his hair was still little more than stubble. During the course of the conversation with the soft-spoken man, Shyamalan began to realise that he had found his leading man, and he would also be bald, have no makeup, and look just like McAvoy. James McAvoy also broke his hand on set. He said, "On Split, I broke my hand. I was meant to punch this door. Actually, it wasn't even on camera. It was before I came in on camera. But there was a soft padded bit of the door, and I took to punching it a few times before I went into a scene, because I was meant to come in full of beans and full of adrenaline, and it was metal. The rest of the door was metal. And I missed the part a bit, and I broke my hand. I carried on the scene, white as a ghost, and kind of in shock." I mean, it doesn't say which scene it is, but it might be interesting to have a look at the film again and work out which one that James McAvoy had previously broken his hand on. On Kevin's computer, there are QuickTime files of the various personalities. The one in the bottom right corner is Mr. Pritchard, and this is likely a reference to the character Lionel Pritchard from Signs in 2002, also directed by M. Night Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan hired cinematographer Mike Goulakis after seeing his work on It Follows, and composer Wes Dillon Thornton after hearing his music on the TV show The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of the Robert Durst. The TV news anchor is played by Yuki Washington, the actual news anchor for KYW, which is the CBS affiliate station in Philadelphia. The last thing Kevin remembered was being on a bus on September 18th, 2014. This is the date which Scotland held a vote to decide if they were going to split from the UK. A majority voted against Scottish independence. Kevin is played by James McAvoy, who is from Scotland and has been outspoken as pro-independence. Stanley K. Brown played Professor Shaw. Although his part was completely cut from the film, his scenes could be seen in the deleted scenes section on the DVD. It is the second film collaboration between M. Night Shyamalan and producer James Blum. They previously worked on The Visit in 2015, and this became the highest grossing Blumhouse film worldwide since Paranormal Activity in 2011, and it held the record only to be surpassed by Five Nights at Freddy's in 2023. Dr. Fletcher may be also a reference to Louise Fletcher, who played Nurse Ratched, who was the antagonist in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. A young Kevin Wendell Crumb and his abusive mother are speculated widely to have been briefly seen in Unbreakable. In the scene at the stadium where David Dunn brushes past a woman and her child, and he senses child abuse just before he confronts the drug dealer. In this movie, it's revealed that Kevin himself was a victim of child abuse, with his mother being the abuser, and that his father left on the train. Glass confirmed that Kevin's father did indeed die in the same train wreck that started in Unbreakable. In order to prevent leaks, the final scene was not included in the shooting script, and also omitted from all test screenings. M. Night Shyamalan originally wrote the Kevin character for Unbreakable, but decided to use him in a separate film 15 years later, because there was no time to make it work within the confines of a single movie. The last time Barry visited Dr. Fletcher, you can see how he opened the front door using Dennis's yellow washcloth, and then putting it into his pocket after walking in, showing that it had been Dennis all along, pretending to be Barry. In Kevin's final scene, as the camera tilts up the stairs, the music playing is the beginning of the theme to Unbreakable. As the scene switches to the diner, where Bruce Willis makes an uncredited appearance as David Dunn, the iconic theme of his character from that movie is heard. Because the film and Unbreakable were produced by different studios, M. Night Shyamalan had to get permission from Disney for David Dunn's cameo in the final scene. James McAvoy plays 9 of Kevin's 23 personalities throughout the course of the movie, with one more cooking in the oven, as he put it in interviews during promotions for the film. There is a scene near the end of the movie showing 23 different toothbrushes for each of Kevin's multiple personalities. Similarly, the closing credits are tiled and appear 24 times, accounting for the newly added Beast personality. According to Anne Taylor-Joy, her kiss scene with James McAvoy was her first on-screen kiss. She said in an interview that it was a little odd first kiss scene, as McAvoy was portraying a 9-year-old boy whilst she had her eyes wide open. In Unbreakable, Elijah Price's mother describes a long-fingered creature with a massive mane of hair as the soldier villain, who fights the hero with his hands just before inadvertently describing her own son, the arch-villain, who battles the hero with his mind. Interestingly enough, the physical description of the beast by his minions is identical to that of the monster battling the superhero in the comic book artwork. This is likely indicating that David Dunn has now found his physical match with the Horde, while his arch-enemy Elijah is still plotting from behind bars. Split's production budget of $9 million is 88% smaller than the budget of the predecessor Unbreakable, which was $75 million. In the final scene, as the camera pans through the diner, David Dunn's green poncho from Unbreakable can be seen hanging on a coat rack a few moments before David himself appears. The flower in the bathroom is a Proteo pincushion. It's named after the Greek god Proteus. In Greek mythology, Proteus had the ability to change his shape and form at will. The colour pattern of the wardrobe also corresponds to the colour pattern in Unbreakable, where purple clothes correspond to supervillains. For example, Mr. Glass wears a purple overcoat and drives a purple car, and Dennis pretending to be Barry wears a purple coat on his first visit to Dr. Fletcher. And green for the heroes. David Dunn wears a green raincoat, and Dr. Fletcher wears a green scarf, and when Casey's white shirt is ripped by the Beast, it reveals a green undershirt. The names of the 23 identities are, in order of the computer files, Barry, Jade, Orwell, Kevin, Heinrich, Norma, Goddard, Dennis, Hedwig, Bernice, Patricia, Polly, Luke, Rachel, Felida, Ansel, Aileen, Kat, BT, Samuel, Mary Reynolds, Ian, and Mr. Pritchard. The 24th identity, the Beast, was the last personality to be formed by a trigger. Only 8 identities are listed in the credits: Dennis, Patricia, Hedwig, the Beast, Kevin Wendell Crumb, Barry, Orwell, and Jade. There are clues in the movie as well as to where the girls are being kept and Kevin's employment. For example, the abduction and the alleged previous ones took place at the King of Prussia Mall. There is a zoo near the mall with an underground maintenance area large enough for the abduction to go undetected. There are various animal statues in several scenes as well, and Hedwig's room contains animal drawings with their names on them. The rock wall in the first locked room the girls are held in is also consistent with the walls used in zoo enclosures. There was mention of a school field trip to Kevin's place of work. Kevin has a variety of clothing, and it's presumably from the lost and found at the zoo, which explains where he gets the clothes from, but in my mind it doesn't explain how he knows how to change into the different personalities' clothing according to who they are at any given time. But anyway. Finally, Dr. Fletcher mentioned that the Beast was formed because of your time in this place, which is the zoo. When Dennis as Barry is walking down the spiral staircase from Dr. Fletcher's office, the camera focuses on the stained glass window on the ceiling. If you count each pieces, they add up to 24, possibly foreshadowing that there are actually 24 personalities and not just 23. Over the course of the movie, each of the 3 captives do something that truly angers the 3 dominant personalities of Dennis, Hedwig, and Patricia, and causes them to feel betrayal. Also, when Dr. Fletcher discovers the threesome's personalities to let the Beast attack the 3 captives and do what he wishes with them, she basically acts in a manner that causes an act of betrayal, at least by their means of perception. Samuel Jackson also did not know that M. Night Shyamalan was planning a sequel to Unbreakable until he saw Split in the cinema. Jackson called Shyamalan after seeing the film and said, "So are we going to make this or what?" And M. Night Shyamalan said, "Well, it depends on the opening weekend." Split was a success, and Jackson returned in Glass, the final instalment of the trilogy. And I should say that although I've talked about Unbreakable and Split, I think if I talked about Glass, I'd be just retreading the same things that I was doing before. So for now, this is all I'll have from M. Night Shyamalan. Okay, that's it for this week. Next week I'll be talking about At First Sight, about a blind massage therapist whose girlfriend convinces him to get sight restoring surgery. If you'd like to contact me, you can do so via Bluesky at bluesky.com/film-ability. You can also email me at film-ability@outlook.com. And if you'd like to make a contribution to the things that I do here, you can find me at Patreon at patreon.com/film-ability. You can also find my book at Amazon on Kindle and paperback called Filmability, A History of Disability in Cinema. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.